It's time to strap in and get ready for the front stretch. Presented by Joe's Karting. Dan and Dirk are live in the studio today, ready to hear from you at 402-573-0590.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch presented by Joe's Karting at Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs. Dirk, do we have a big show lined up today?
Bigger than most.
Absolutely, I completely agree. We always say we got a big show because we try to pack that full hour, and I think we do a pretty good job of it. But today is going to be a big day, and we want to say a big thank you to Archer Purdue Auto Sales for sponsoring our live shows for this year. We're going to be bringing you quite a few of them over the next couple of months. In fact, 3 weekends in a row with the Go 50 next weekend. We'll have Bobby Pierce on the show to preview that race, and then we'll come back to preview the Charlie Clark, the Indy 500, the Coca-Cola 600. Probably the best day of racing.
A big day of racing.
So we got 3 big days of live shows coming up. And those, again, are brought to you by Archer Purdue Auto Sales. And we'll get more information on Archer Purdue coming up in just a little bit. On today's show, Landon Cassill will join us in Turn 1 to talk a little bit about his time with StarCom Racing. Then in Turn number 2, Shawn Langdon, NHRA funny car driver, will join us to preview the Menards NHRA Heartland Nationals presented by Minties. Stan Cisar will be in Turn number 3 to talk about the races at Eagle and I-80 for tonight, for over this weekend. And then in Turn number 4, if we have time, which we're not going to have much time, we'll talk a little bit about the Pick'ems contest and what's going on with that, and plus some progress we made while we were down in Kansas City this weekend. Before we kick off the show, we do have to send our thoughts and prayers out to the family, friends, and fans of Denny Hovingay, who was a racer over in the Midwest, over in the Denison and Harlan area. I got to meet Denny a couple of times while I was working at Crawford County. You probably knew him a lot better than I did with your age and everything. That
Thank you.
Experience. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to say experience. But Denny passed away earlier this week. I know he was a staple over in that community. I fully expect some sort of a memorial tribute race to be raced to him this year.
I'm pretty sure there's going to be probably at Crawford County, and I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe something turn into a Tiny Lund type deal up there.
Absolutely. And, of course, today being one of the only days that we don't race on Sunday for NASCAR. And the reason is we don't race on Mama's Day, and it is Mother's Day, so I got to say a happy Mother's Day to my mother, who did an amazing job trying to raise me, and despite her best efforts, here I am.
I already said it to my mom, so happy Mother's Day to the rest of the mothers out there. Enjoy your day. A little chilly this morning, but I don't think there's any snow in the forecast, so if you get flowers, you should be good.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolutely gorgeous day. I heard a high of 75 and sunny, so this is going to be perfect to sit outside and do some grilling.
Well, it'll actually be probably a lot nicer than the weather we had in Kansas City, which was very muggy because of the rain every morning, and it got warm, but then the wind was blowing you all over the place, so...
That wind, though, thank heavens for that wind, because, like you said, it was hot and muggy, and that wind really helped to bring the temperature down a couple of degrees.
Yeah, once you got sweated, it cooled
down.
Right.
Which was a complete opposite from what you guys had up here in Omaha. I mean, we were only 2 hours to the south, but it was 20 degrees difference. While we were sitting 80, 85, you guys were in the mid-60s, so it was rather odd, only 2 hours south, and we were having that big of a difference.
But some of the thunderstorms were the same.
Yep, absolutely. All right, the race last night for the KC Masterpiece 400 at Kansas Speedway. We're going to try to get through this as quickly as possible because we've got Landon Cassill coming up. And like I said, we've got a really packed show for you today and only an hour to get through it. A couple of guys, there were 6 cars that had issues with pre-qualifying inspection. I never did read if NASCAR took away their car chiefs, which was pretty status quo.
No, I did ask a couple of my officials buddies, and nobody went through inspection more than twice.
Interesting. And I'm actually kind of shocked that the last time the teams tried to do that, NASCAR got pretty firm with them, allowed the other teams to purchase extra tires, but that was also at a track that wore tires a lot more than Kansas does.
Well, and it was also a deal where it was a third of the field, as to oppose a handful of cars. And really only one car out of that group really, made a significant advancement, and that was Clint Boyer. He came up through the field rather rapidly. Kyle Larson had tried to qualify and spun through the grass in the second round, so went 24th, but then had to change his flat-spotted tires and went to the back, and he came through the field like a rocket.
Absolutely. It was Matt Kenseth's triumphant Return to the Cup Series, and you could kind of expect this. Even though he took a 12-week break from full-time racing, it does take a little bit to get reacclimated with the cars because they do make some changes in the offseason. But the biggest struggle and what most people have said to me, and I completely agree, the biggest problem for Matt Kenseth wasn't that he took 12 races off, it's that he was racing for Roush Fenway Racing.
Well, he got in the 6 car, which has done absolutely nothing all year. I mean, we were listening to the radio on pre-race stuff, and they were already trying to make every excuse in the book of why he wasn't going to be in the top 10 or something like that. You know, well, he's been gone so long and stuff. I'm sure he had a couple test sessions with Roush to, get back in. The major change on the cars over the winter was the ride height. So there wasn't a whole lot going on. So sitting out 12 races, that could have been he broke his wrist.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that's how many races Tony sat out when he broke his leg in that pre-race thing, or the preseason
About
thing.
the thing with Kyle Busch when he got hurt a couple years ago.
And, I wouldn't bank on Matt doing much. I mean, his whole role there, obviously, if they're able to get a top 15, top 10 finish, that's going to be icing on the cake. But his role there is to really start to communicate with the team on the changes they need to make, because I think they felt pretty lacking in that department with Trevor Bayne behind the wheel.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor was a flash in the pan with winning the Daytona 500 with the Wood brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And from then, there's been nothing.
Yeah.
He
had some success in the Xfinity Series. Not a lot, but some. I believe he won a championship down there for Roush. But in the Cup Series, it's a whole different world. That extra horsepower, the aero really comes into a factor. And if you're lost and you've got no one to lean on as far as experience, like a Biffle or a Kenseth or an Edwards or, some of these other guys, like Eric Almirola has Kurt Busch, Tony Stewart, Kevin Harvick, and
well, Eric
Clint
Almirola
Bowyer
finally has somebody,
right,
where he'd always been on his own pretty much.
So that's going to be a big thing for Matt Kenseth, and he's in the card for the next 4 rides, and we'll see what he could do with that. I think if we're going to see anything, it'll be in that 5th race, the 4 races to come. We're going to start to see a little spark out of that car.
If there's going to be any spark
out of it. Absolutely. Results from last night's race. Man, you talked about it. We hate to say it, but it was kind of a snooze fest to start about the first 240 of 267 laps.
Well,
they were out there just taking laps, trying to log, and they were racing. There was good racing throughout the field, and it was competitive, but it got strung out pretty quickly as Aero is king at Kansas.
And as we were talking on the ride back, when the destruction started happening there, it was lap 239, and I didn't know what lap it was. And the first thing I did was look at you and said, if this is lap 240, that would be the 30 or the third 80-lap stage.
Yeah.
So it would be, those were the cautions. There wasn't anything going on the first, 240 laps of the race, but boy, there was plenty of destruction the last 27 laps.
Rough day for Ryan Blaney. Led 54 laps 2 different times on the race. Had a very competitive car. Involved in an accident late with Kyle Larson, and ended up spinning and destroying his car. He finished 37th. Matt Kenseth was involved in an accident, finished 36th. Chris Buescher, William Byron, both involved in accidents, finished 34th and 33rd respectively. Jamie McMurray, who had a good car, finished 31st. Ryan Newman, also competitive, up in the top 10, had a 30th place car. Landon Cassill, our buddy over at StarCom Racing, good 25th place finish for that car. They're making some good gains on that car. I expect to see them being a little bit more competitive as the season goes on.
Well, we made the note when we went down to their pit box that there was, what they have, 4 sets or 5 sets of tires?
4 sets laying there, so a 5th set on the car.
So obviously a low-budget team, and trying to keep in that realm there, and not, at $2,200 a set for tires, not buying the full allotment.
Mm-hmm.
So that obviously hurts them a little bit. But as when we talked with Landon, he does take care of his equipment.
Yeah,
that's why one of the reasons he's in that car. The other is his feedback from all his experience.
Jimmy Johnson, absolutely horrible day. I mean, I don't think there's any way you could put. Had issues in pre-qualifying inspection. Got out with about 30 seconds to go on the clock to make a lap. He went out, made 1 lap, qualified 21st. 23rd. Actually came over the radio and said, "That's all I've got. Let's not even waste our equipment." Got out of the car and they started 23rd, and they really didn't improve much from there. I mean, they were only able to get up a couple of spots to the 19th spot.
Well, and they got down a couple laps early, and then could never. By the end of the second stage, they were down 2 laps, and you get down 2 laps, you're not making up any places.
Top 10 finishes. Kyle Busch ends up in that 10th spot. Eric Romarola 9th, Kurt Busch 8th, Eric Jones 7th, Paul Menard 6th, and Denny Hamlin 5th. Kyle Larson rallies back for a 4th place finish. Joey Logano 3rd, Martin Truex Jr. 2nd, and Kevin Harvick gets the win. We'll try to talk more about the Kansas Speedway race next weekend, but we got to get over to our interview with Landon Cassill, and we talked to him about several different topics, and one of them we kicked off with was that Kansas can be quite the difficult track if you don't qualify up front, because you're going to be stuck in the dirty air, making for an unpleasant weekend.
Yeah, it's a very aero-sensitive racetrack, but there's getting to be a lot of tire fall-off here. I don't know if it's a factor of just the tires that they're bringing or the surface or whatever, but it builds up a lot of rubber on the racetrack, and you get a lot of tire fall-off. So sticker tires are worth gold here.
We were really excited to see after in the 6th race of the year that you'd signed with our friends at StarCom Racing. We opened up a relationship with them last October here at Kansas, and so it was great to see an Iowa native get connected with another team that the only other team that we're really connected with. So that had to be kind of fun for you to, but also a little bit scary too, because you lost the ride ended in 2017, and then it was a little bit of a question mark, and now you're with a new startup team. Talk about kind of how that transition's happened.
It's not easy, but I really like working with new teams. I feel like my value or my feedback is valued, and it's rewarding to see those gains that you see on a week-to-week basis with a new team. So it's kind of a niche that I think I've found in my driving career that really works for me, and it creates opportunities for me when I need them.
And you're talking about a niche. One niche I've noticed throughout your career is you take care of equipment. So with a startup team, obviously that's very important. But I wanted to go back to where we were talking about the aero dependency. With this no height rule package they've got going on, how much has that helped or hurt the aero, like back in the field?
Man, I don't know. It might have hurt a little bit, but I mean, I think the biggest thing it's created on a car performance side of things is that the cars are very sensitive to the aero platform, because you can essentially just kind of set them to the height that you want, and if it moves off of that at all, it kind of really changes the balance of the car. And then it's even more so amplified at a track like Kansas, where it's just so smooth that a quarter or an eighth inch, a splitter height, can change the aero balance by 3 or 4%. So when something like that is the difference between being happy with your car or yelling at your crew chief about it.
You wouldn't yell.
No, I don't yell too much.
Going back and talking about the working with a new team in your input, I noticed that was the first 2 races that the team was just really excited about how much you were able to give them for inputs, because building that book for a race team could take 2 or 3 years, but with a driver like you could cut that down a lot of time.
Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, they feel like being a new team, we know where we're lacking in resources. We don't have a technical alliance. We don't have simulation. We're not taking a car to pull down rig or 7-post or anything like that. So we know we sort of have a bulletin board of the tools that we need, and we know that we want to get in the future. So it's a matter of, okay, how can our driver help shortcut some of those things? You know, right now one of our big focuses as a team, especially between Tony and I, the crew chief, is our front end geometry and just how the front tires are working. We feel like that's our deficiency. Getting them to work more efficiently, get the car to turn better, allow me to carry more speed. It doesn't feel like the setups, you know, the actual springs and track bar wedge balance of the car type setup is that far off. It feels good to me. It's just kind of the way the front end works in the steering wheel, and that's where I'm focusing my feedback. And when Tony makes changes that are relevant to the front end, they tend to respond, and that's where we get the most speed gains. So, you know, on one hand, we're working on those things to get a shortcut to where we want to be. But long term, you know, the team needs to have a technical alliance. They need to develop these tools and an engineering staff to be able to build the fastest race cars.
Luckily, you don't need $1 million pit guns anymore.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Has there been some changes over the last couple of years that we've talked to you? Especially, there's been some big changes from 17 to 18 that NASCAR has made. Is there a couple of them that you're happy with, you're really excited about?
I don't know. I mean, I think that that's more of the stuff that's kind of on the horizon that gets me excited. You know, I like the idea of the rules package for the All-Star race. I think it's kind of cool. I'm not opposed at all to the restrictor plates on intermediate tracks and the aero ducts. I mean, I think that it just can create a different type of racing, and I hope it's entertaining. You know, the challenge there is every time when you tinker with the cars, it just costs the teams a lot of money, and really for what benefit? You know, are the fans really that upset with the racing, or do they you know, is, you know, we feel like we really want to get TV ratings higher, we want more people in the seats, and it, you know, if we invest, if each team has to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars for new aero packages, is that going to translate to more people in the seats, you know? And so that's sort of the challenge. I feel like I would like to see more of just a standard race car. I feel like a lot of things that are variables that teams invest millions of dollars into don't really contribute to the value of the whole sport. So, I mean, you know, we spend millions and millions of dollars researching the front end geometries, like I was just talking about. Well, we have the technology and the ability to inspect these cars at the R&D center. Let's just make them all the same, you know, and cut those costs out completely. Now, they'll find another place to spend that money, but at least you cut that cost out. The fans won't know any different. The on-track product won't be any different. And, you know, it could be something where you really, you know, cut a huge expense, and it would catch up smaller teams like this one, and lower the barrier of entry to be able to be a new team owner.
I've just looked at, with this, you talked about the rules package for the All-Star race. I'm looking at that as like a big test session in front of the fans. And NASCAR is going to look and say, did the fans like this? And they'll be able to tell. There'll be a good crowd, even though it's the All-Star race and some of the crowds are down. There'll be a bunch of people there. And NASCAR will look and say, well, did the fans like that racing, or did the fans just boo it all? You know.
Right.
And obviously, if your driver doesn't win, you're going to boo. But I think the actual race fans, I think they're going to like it. I kind of liked it in the Xfinity cars at Indy, so I'm hopeful it's a plus.
Yeah, and it's absolutely, and I think it will be a plus. I think it's going to be a great race, but you're still just pulling the fans that are there. And what the sport really needs are the fans that aren't there. You know, the fans in bigger markets are the people that have turned their backs on the sport. You know, we figure out what that hook is that's going to get them back into the sport.
Since we talked to you last, you've become a daddy again. Does the factor change now that you have multiple kids? Is it kind of still the same? It's now just, okay, it was 2, now it's 3. Now, or is it now multiplied 2 to now 3?
I don't know. I mean, I think that we've just got a busy house, and yeah, and so. You know, we're no longer growing exponentially, which is good. So it's nice that we didn't have twins or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just it's a fun time in life for me and my wife and for my family, and having little kids around. You know, my son Beckham turns 3 in 2 weeks. So, you know, he's really excited about his birthday. He loves race cars. He wants 2 things for his birthday. He wants candy and race cars. And he loves golf clubs, and he loves playing golf. So, you know, we just have a lot of fun. And my daughter Daphne is 7 months old, and she's already crawling quicker than Beckham was, and she's doing things faster, and, you know, she's definitely picking up on her older brother. So we definitely have a nice little family going on right now, and it's fun.
Any chance you're going to race at Hawkeye Downs this year?
Oh man, I would love to. I really want to. I raced there last year. You know, I actually just got an email from the track a couple weeks ago. You know, trying to figure out a time for me to come up and race. So I definitely want to put it on the schedule, and, you know, you know, just get back to me and figure out what night I need to come out to. But I definitely want to race back at Hawkeye Downs.
But going and racing those extra races, I mean, that's what you want to do. You don't want to race just once a day and practice for 2
Right.
days. You want to be able to go out and race, but I got to imagine having Cup Series and that restricts your schedule pretty considerably.
Yeah, it is tough, and not having a late model to go race, you know, the logistics of putting a car together, you know, making sure it's a decent, safe car, is a different sort of dynamic now than it was back then. You know, the safety aspect is important, and you know, because now this is my livelihood. This is how I make a living.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to trust the people that are putting the car together and all that stuff. And the people in Iowa have always been really good to me and built me safe, fast race cars. So that's why I enjoy racing back home.
Well, and now you got candy and cars to buy for birthday
That's
presents
right,
the next
for
couple
sure.
of years. You can't miss out on that
Yep.
kind of stuff.
But Hawkeye Downs is a near and dear to my heart. You know, that racetrack is where I learned all my racing techniques at a young age. And so, you know, that Friday night show is a real special one.
So the best we're going to get out of you now is a maybe. Working on it, maybe.
A definite maybe.
Okay, definite
Yeah.
maybe. I'll take that one. That gives you more than most of our guys give us
Yeah.
for inside information. Coming out to you've got obviously the Kansas race, and then All-Star race. You're going to qualify for that race and then go and race it for the Coca-Cola 600. Aero tracks dependent for the next couple of weeks. Are you more of a speedway, a short track, or a super speedway guy?
Well, I mean, I think we've had a lot of fun on the short tracks in the past few weeks. And I love the short tracks, man. We had a great run at Bristol. StarCom really was a shining moment for that team. But big picture thinking, we need to get better at these mile-and-a-half racetracks. That is going to be, where this program improves and where it becomes a challenging team to some of these bigger teams and attracts bigger sponsors. We got to be able to run well at the tracks that make up 2/3 of the schedule. So, this is kind of where me and my team just have to put our heads down and grind it out over the next, portion of the season until we get another short track swing.
One of the big news stories that's kind of leaked out over the last couple of weeks is the possibility of NASCAR being for sale. If somebody was to give you the billions of dollars to buy it, what would be the first thing you would change? I don't want to make it sound like things need to change.
Yeah.
But there's always change.
Oh, there's
You could always
a
change
good
things
water
for the
cooler
better.
conversation.
There you go.
He's not working on that, putting that billion together already.
Yeah. Maybe I'm trying to buy NASCAR.
I don't know if you heard he has another kid. That billions went to millions.
Yeah. I don't know. That's such a fun conversation to have, that sort of water cooler discussion on what you would do with the sport. I would really try to accentuate the franchise type system that the sport has sort of put in place and sort of had with the charter system. I would want to create a financial model for these team owners, give them real definitive streams of revenue and abilities to generate revenue for the teams. I would have, it created in such a way that the teams themselves could kind of have their brand the same way. The Yankees have a brand. I would want Hendrick Motorsports and StarCom Racing to have a brand, and have less emphasis on being reliant on a single corporate sponsor to allow you to succeed.
Yeah.
I think it would let the drivers sort of be themselves and put on a good show. I would focus on the cars being built the same and put less, unless I would give the manufacturers a chance to bring something to the table that is relevant to what they're selling on the streets.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, I think that spending millions of dollars in some of the technologies that are in our cars that aren't relevant to street cars isn't money well spent. So
Yeah.
I would hope that we could generate a car. I think that I'd like to see electric cars in NASCAR.
Yeah.
So, I think it would be cool if the manufacturers were able to bring something to that, because I think that would open up the door to huge corporations and big money that cares about electric vehicles and clean energy. So,
Right.
yeah.
So Tesla coming into the circuit.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Wouldn't that be?
Yeah.
All right, you can see him still doing stuff with NBC Sports, right?
Yep. So I'm an analyst on NASCAR America. I'm going to be in the broadcast booth for the K&N series a number of times this year. So yeah, you'll see me in a lot of shows there, and I've got a little special project I'm working on outside of that you'll find out about soon.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're getting into the broadcast booth, because I think you've got a really clean delivery,
Thank
which
you.
this sport could use more of. A little less technical, a little less hokey, and a little more clean, intelligent.
Boogity! You don't want me to
is
do
that?
that?
What is that what you think I'm talking about? Is that what I'm talking?
You don't want me to say that? Okay,
don't-
never mind.
Good luck for the rest of the season. Always great talking to you.
Thank you.
This week's young gun on the front stretch is 18-year-old Daniel Coondog Hovitt, who is starting his third season behind the wheel of a dirt track car. After watching his grandfather and uncles compete throughout the Midwest, Daniel knew it was only a matter of time before he followed in their footsteps. After cutting his teeth in a sport mod at I-80 Speedway, Daniel decided to try the hobby stock class and has loved every lap of it. Outside of racing, Daniel loves to find a quiet fishing hole and relax next to the campfire with friends and family. 2017 was a great year for the budding driver, since he finished top 10 at I-80 Speedway and claimed Rookie of the Year honors. Daniel's been working hard this offseason preparing his Central State Contractors, Larry's Auto Salvage, Bill's Trim Shop, Uncle Mick's 53C, so that he can make a solid run at the I-80 Speedway Track Championship. While Daniel loves his stock car, he does dream of the day that he can get a super late model and compete with the likes of Burke, Pospischel, and Layton. Thanks to I-80 Speedway for sponsoring this week's Young Gun, Daniel Coondog Hovitt.
The 2018 season is finally here for I-80 Speedway. The Go 50 and Silver Dollar Nationals, both featuring the Lucas Oil late models, Charlie Clark Memorial, Midwest Fall Brawl, I-80 Dirt Classic, and of course the best weekly racing featuring 7 NASCAR classes. I-80Speedway.com for race dates and tickets. Call Lee today for family or group tickets at 342-3453. I-80 Speedway. I-80 Speedway is the place to be on Friday nights for NASCAR dirt track action.
Every race car driver has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you White Knuckle Racing by the River bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Hey, this is Courtney Forrest, driver of the Advanced Auto Parts Funny Car, and you're listening to the Metro's only all-racing talk show, The Front Stretch. Come see me at the Menards NHRA Heartland Nationals presented by Minties May 18th through the 20th at Heartland Motorsports Park.
Turn 2 brought to you by the NHRA Mellow Yellow Drag Series. They roar to life at Heartland Park, Topeka for the Menards NHRA Heartland Nationals, presented by Minties, May 18th, 19th, and 20th. Can you believe it? That's this coming weekend. It's finally here. If you haven't got your tickets yet, all the drag strip race action your race love and heart can be just a call or click away. NHRA.com/tickets or 800-884-NHRA. That's 800-884-6472. Joining us on the phone now is a guy who's going to be down at Heartland Park, Topeka for the Menards NHRA Heartland Nationals presented by Minties. Shawn Langdon joining us on the phone. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
We appreciate you joining us, and as always, it's going to be awesome to talk to you. We don't get to talk about the drag strip racing enough. How does a guy from Miraloma, California, turn into a drag strip guy?
That's a great question. I grew up in the sport. My dad raced when I was a kid, so a lot of tracks locally in Southern California, obviously Pomona, LACR, Bakersfield. I grew up at the racetrack watching my dad race locally. So I kind of grew a little bit of an admiration for the sport, enjoyed going out to the track, racing my Hot Wheels on the trailer while my dad was racing. But it wasn't really until I got my own junior dragster in 1994, when I was 12 years old, that I got to experience it firsthand, where I was racing and my dad was the crew chief, and just really kind of started to enjoy it after that. In 97, I won the Junior Dragster National Championship, and that really kind of changed my whole perspective on everything. I really started I was a big fan as a kid growing up, going to the Pomonas twice a year, getting all of the top fuel guys' autographs. So that was always my thing. I was always pinning them up on the wall. My mom was always getting mad because when I would take them back down, the drywall was all messed up from me pinning them up in my room. And I just really loved the sport. Grew up idolizing a lot of the top fuel drivers, never really thinking that I would ever have an opportunity to be one of those guys one day.
What is it like driving for Connie Coletta?
It's awesome, man. He's, obviously with the obvious, he's a legend of our sport.
He's the Richard Petty of NHRA.
He is. He's so cool to work for. The guy's sharp. It's unbelievable at his age, and he can barely walk. He can barely hear. He can barely see you. But how smart this guy is when you talk to him, and half the words is him always kind of like huh. So you got to kind of repeat yourself a lot of times when you're talking to him, and just he was always riding around in a golf cart. But how sharp this guy is when he's tuning a race car and he looks at the race pack. And a prime example, last weekend we're all on the starting line watching a run, Richie Crampton's car, and it makes a run and it goes through the finish line, and we took it for what it's worth. You watch him go down the track and he shuts the car off, and Connie goes, man, it kicked the rods out in the shutdown area. And we kind of like looked at him like, he can barely hear you when you're 5 feet away from him talking to him. How does he know that this car, where is he coming up with this?
Yeah.
Sure. We get back to the pit, it had the rods out. And it's stuff like that that really gives you that much more respect for the guy of, at his age, doing what he's doing. He could do anything he wants in the world. I mean, he's got a very successful business with Coletta Air. But how much love and how much passion this guy has for the sport, driving for him makes you, it makes you appreciate what you do so much more because of guys like that, working for guys with that amount of passion and that amount of love for the sport. It makes you want to be better.
Well, I remember did you ever see the movie Heart Like a Wheel? The movie
No,
is based on Shirley Muldowney, and I think it's got one of the Bridges. I think is it Bo Bridges? Bo Bridges, I think, plays Connie, in his much younger days, 1960 type criteria stuff. And the passion that he brought to that role was just incredible. And I mean, that was way back when.
Yeah, and one awesome thing about Connie is, just the guy drove for so long. So, last year when I was racing his car, it was really cool to interact with him and to get his feedback from the driving side of it. Because a lot of things that he would come to me and he would notice on the race pack, and he would say, you probably felt this. Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay, well, here's some things that you can do, to be a little bit better in these areas, or these are things that you can probably pick up on and might help you get through this situation a little bit better. And he's right. And it's crazy just how good this guy is. And, he helped me in a couple areas last year driving the car that I may have struggled with a little bit. But, the cool thing is after hours, once the car is loaded up, once everything kind of cools down and the computers get shut off, just talking to him and hearing his stories from back in the day. I mean, it's incredible, the stories. I mean, just the funny stories and the crazy stories. And this guy, he needs to write a book.
Oh, or at least sell the rights.
Exactly, because it would be a very interesting read. And let me tell you, some of the stories this guy has is pretty incredible.
I can only imagine. And you were talking about a little bit earlier about, idolizing some of these guys. And I got to imagine it's pretty other than worldly to be able to sit there and compete against guys like John Force and Ron Capps. And and then you're talking about your car owner and being able to learn right from them.
Yeah. It's sometimes I'll be sitting in my race car and a lot of times the guys will tell me who I'm running, and just, so that way, you don't really change what you do because of who you're running, but it's always just nice to know who you're running. And so when they call out guys like, hey, you're running against John Force, you're running against Ron Capps, I kind of get chills a little bit, where it's just like, wow, like, who would have thought 20 years ago, 30 years ago, just how big of a fan I was. I love drag racing. I love going out and getting these guys autographs, and now I'm racing against them. A lot of times, get so busy throughout the year because you're doing your own stuff and you're, trying to do all these obligations you have. You just get so busy that you really don't think about some of the things sometimes, but it's those moments that really makes you appreciate where I'm at in life and the things that I've had to go through and the things that I've done to get to where I'm at today. It's just, man, it's so awesome to race against these guys. And, Q2 Friday night, I'm standing up there on the start line and John Force comes over and starts talking to me. And it's just things like that. It's just normal conversation, but it's like, that's awesome. That's really cool that, John Force comes over and talks to me and talks to me about certain things. And I'm very fortunate in my life to be where I'm at.
Well, one thing, if you're going to talk with John, you're not saying much. All you get to do is listen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You just listen and smile, because he's going to tell the whole story. He's going to make it funny. And, how you see him on TV is how he is in real life, but it's pretty funny. But yeah, it's really cool that the class that we race with today in Funny Car, it's a great group of guys being teammates with JR, but also racing against, Courtney and John and Robert, and, racing against the Schumacher group with Beckman and TJ and Capps and Hagen and all the other guys. Cruz and Wilk and all these guys, Yanni Lindbergh. It's just it's a really cool group of guys, and it's a super competitive group of guys where, I mean, how close the racing is, it really takes it where it's like you're trying to be better than all these other guys, and it's difficult to do because it's a talented group of drivers. You're racing against probably one of the best groups that I've seen in a long time.
And now with Herrin, with the start of the season John Force has had, we were talking about the way he's maybe going to get the nickname Destroyer, the way he's destroyed some equipment this spring. Does that make you a little nervous when you're pulled up next to a guy that's, blown up 5 cars this year or something like that?
Well, it's not any one team in particular. I mean, there's been, Robert Height and Matt Hagan and a few other teams have had some explosions as well. We've been very fortunate that, with Toyota and with our Toyota Camrys and working with TRD, that, we've been very fortunate that, no Toyotas have had any bodies come off this year. Of course, I'm knocking on wood as I say that.
Yeah, good idea.
But you got to kind of take it for what it's worth. I mean, we know the risks when we get into these race cars. We know what can happen. You don't dwell on what can happen. You just dwell on what you can control. You can't control the uncontrollable. So all we can do is focus on the safety aspect of things, prepare our cars the best that we possibly can. And the rest, at some point, you really don't want to shrug it off, but it is what it is in a sense. You just try to do the best job that you can for your team, for your sponsors. You try to put the best safety equipment on and really do your research. But I mean, at the end of the day, how do you control 11,000 horsepower nitro burning?
Yeah.
It's not really the easiest thing to control. It's really got a mind of its own. So,
what's been the biggest change for you switching from a top fuel to a funny car?
Is obviously been with the body coming down. I'm a little bit more enclosed in a funny car. It's a little bit different point of focus. You're looking over a motor instead of looking right in front of the car. I think the biggest difference that I've had to change is how these cars steer and how they react to steering. So just how they drive, the steering input that you put into it, they just react to them differently. A dragster is really forgiving on how you steer it because of the longer wheelbase. A funny car is going to react a lot more because of the shorter wheelbase, so it's a little bit more temperamental. Down low early in the run. Down low early in the run, you really got to kind of watch how much you steer it because it really amplifies how much you have to steer it down track. So if you're kind of getting a little wishy-washy early in the run, it's really going to be out of control top end. As these cars start to accelerate down the track and more downforce gets put on the bodies, your steering input has to be a lot more aggressive. So there's some runs that I'll go through the finish line where I'll have like my left hand over my right hand trying to keep it in line. Now, obviously, you won't drive that early. So that's been something that I've had to kind of get accustomed to is where you really kind of just nudge a top fuel dragster the whole way down. A funny car, you got to be real easy with it early, but as it starts to go down the track, really got to start manhandling it.
Yeah, now, I've never really looked at the front end on the funny car, but I know on the top fuel car, you can see it. It's plain as day how laid back the spindles are. I mean, that car is set up to just to go straight. It's definitely not going to handle in a turn or anything like that. Is the funny car front end set up the same way?
Yeah, they're pretty similar. I mean, obviously, we do everything that we can to set the cars up to go straight. I know we've made some chassis adjustments this year, working with TRD. Just some different changes that we've made, improvements to the chassis to help them just go straighter in every sense of the word. But there again, you're dealing with 11,000 horsepower, and if you have an engine malfunction and you drop a cylinder, I mean that's 1,200 horsepower that's going out, so it's going to really push you that way. So there's only so much that you can control, but you really try to do the best that you can to control what you can.
Shawn Langdon of the Global Electronic Technologies Toyota. You'll see him this coming Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for the Menards NHRA Heartland Nationals presented by Minties. Shawn, we appreciate your time. Best of luck with heading down to Topeka, and we hope to meet up with you sometime when we get down there.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Shawn.
Once again, if you want to get tickets for the Menards NHRA Heartland Nationals presented by Minties, you can get them today by calling 800-884 NHRA or going to NHRA.com/tickets. Again, NHRA.com/tickets. We're sending Jim Howe down there to do some audio, so we're going to be getting some interviews to be playing on the show in the next couple of weeks. One of these years, though, we got to go down there.
Well, it's like this year, it's happened to be set up when we got the Go 50 and stuff going locally, so we really don't have the time, unfortunately, to get down there.
Right. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
The NHRA Mellow Yellow Drag Racing Series, the world's fastest motorsport, is returning to Topeka.
339 miles an hour.
NHRA's best top-fueled dragster and funny car drivers are ready to face off at the Menards NHRA Heartland Nationals, May 18th through 20th. Kids 12 and under are free in general admission, and every ticket's on Pit Pass. So bring the family, meet the drivers, and be part of the action. Get tickets early and save at NHRA.com or call 800-884-NHRA.
Today's live show on the front stretch is brought to you by Archer Purdue Auto Sales, located at 14227 South S Street in Omaha, right next to the amazing pizza machine. Dirk, they've got great used auto sales there for you to pick up on a daily basis.
And that they do, as Brian states on his commercials, they stack them deep and sell them cheap. They are open on Sundays from noon to 4. You can check out their inventory at archpurdue.com. You can give them a shout at 402-891-1100. Just right out in Millard. Real easy to find. Local racers, go out and support your local racers. That's a great deal. And in the future, we're going to be doing a front stretch car of the week. So they're going to put a special out for people to go in there and save some money.
Do it. Don't get underneath a huge debt like a lot of Americans like to do. Head over to Archer Purdue Chevrolet. They're gonna take care of you. 14227 South Street in Omaha. S Street.
There we go.
In Omaha 6, and you can find them online or by calling 402-891-1100.
The 2018 season is finally here for I-80 Speedway. The Go 50 and Silver Dollar Nationals, both featuring the Lucas Oil late models, Charlie Clark Memorial, Midwest Fall Brawl, I-80 Dirt Classic, and of course the best weekly racing featuring 7 NASCAR classes. I80Speedway.com for race dates and tickets. Call Lee today for family or group tickets at 342-3453. I-80 Speedway. I-80 Speedway is the place to be on Friday nights for NASCAR dirt track action.
Soon the flowers will be blooming, and we'll all be busy enjoying the beautiful Midwest spring. With the arrival of spring, we all know ridiculous summer heat is just around the corner. A simple preventative maintenance plan from Eccles Heating and Cooling can make sure you're as cool as a cucumber during the hot summer months. Call Pat today for your preventative maintenance plan, or ask about a new energy-efficient TempStar HVAC. Eccles Heating and Cooling is there for you at 402-331-1755.
Stretch. Heading into turn number 3. And it's time to sit down with the voice of the Speedway and have a little bit of a conversation of some dirt track action. We recapped Kansas in turn 1. Now let's recap the NASCAR action at I-80 Speedway. Now in turn number 3, joining us on the phone, Stan Cisar, the voice of the Speedway. How are you this morning, sir?
I'm awake this morning. That's probably a good thing.
That's better than we're doing.
Yeah. I don't know if I just caught a little something there, but it sounds like you got a little frog in your throat, like you had some action to call last couple of nights.
It was pretty exciting last night. Took it that Sprint Car A feature. I had a vested interest in that one, but we're talking about I-80 Speedway Friday night action. We had 108 cars, and those guys did a great job both Thursday night into Friday and Friday night into Saturday. We got some heavy overnight rains, and it forced the guys with the track prep crew to work some long hours to get things in. And I-80 kicked things off on Friday night, and very quickly, we don't want to get into turn 4 here too deep, but in the sport modified division at I-80 Speedway on Friday night, it was Anthony Roth picking up his second straight win. In car number 60, Sean Harker comes home in the second spot. Matthew Andrews had a good run, finishing third. and Austin Swoboda and Eric Wolf Jr. with another top 5 finish in the 97W. Moving into the stock car division, and arguably probably the best race of the night, Scott Carlson outdueled Nick Woodard, Larry Robinson Jr. for the win. Jed Williams comes home in the 3rd spot, and Jake McLeod, one of the guys out of Carter Lake, Iowa, I think this is his 2nd year in the stock cars, and he had his best run of the season, rounding out the top 5 finishers. In the super late model division, great field of cars on hand, 25 super late models in the house, and it was kind of a confusing race to call and to watch. We had Jake Neal out there, and he was out there with his MLA car, and he wanted to do a little testing and tuning for the Go 50 that's coming up, and he started at the rear of the field, and as he raced his way up through traffic, he basically actually raced his way to the lead, and was leading with about 5 laps to go, and then just pulled off into the infield, knowing full well that his car didn't meet the weekly series rules. He's running the car, the big engine with no restrictors in there, so he was pretty dominant with straightaway handling, on that deal. But Ben Schaller outlasted Andrew Koziski for the win. Ben Sukup come home in the 3rd spot. Matt Buller was 4th, and Bill Layton Jr. Rounding out your top 5 finishers. In the super late model division, what was a great race on a very fast racetrack, although by the time those guys got to the track, it did start rutting up pretty bad because of a lot of rain, soft track condition. Next up was the Bragging Rights Grand National late models, and kind of a new face, Nick Deal, who normally competes in that modified division. He's out of Walnut, Iowa. He picked up the ride in the Roby Motorsports 8-ball, and he pretty much dominated that race. Ben Sukup hopped into his Grand National car, came home with a 2nd-place finish. Jacob Brown was 3rd. Andrew Tilley and Dave Cook rounding out your top 5 finishers. In the hobby stocks, only 11 hobby stocks in the house, but we had a first-time winner, Nick Brueggemann out of Elkhorn, Nebraska. Car number 64 outlasted the field. He had his hands full, though. The 6R of Roy Armstrong was right there, and Nick never put a wheel wrong those last few laps, and had a great finish in that deal. So picking up the win there. And moving over into Saturday night action once again. They didn't, I don't think, make a decision until probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon for sure if they were going to be able to race. The track was fine, but the infield and the pits needed quite a bit of work to be able to get the race cars and haulers in and out and stuff like that, and emergency vehicles down in the infield there. But we had 166 cars in 5 classes. Once again, 38 sprint cars, and they did not disappoint. We had a lightning-fast racetrack last night. In the first heat, we had 5 cars under the 13-second bracket, fastest of which was my guy, Cody Ledger. He was only 6/100ths off the track record, and he put 10 laps together. The slowest was a 12:81, which is only 4/10ths off the track record. And so racing was hot and heavy in that sprint car division. I think that out of the top 16 cars that qualified out of the heat races last night, there was like maybe 0.7 of a second separating 1st through 16th. So it was just a little bit of a preview for things to come. Had a C main again in the sprint car division. Danny Nicolite picked up the win there. B mains went to Hunter Weber in the sport modifieds. Brett Sadoff in the hobby stocks. Dustin Anderson, coming out of the B main, picked up the win in the modified division. In the sport compacts, it was Nick Lindblad and Ryan Kitchen in the sprint cars. Jack Dover picked up the last transfer spot. Tell you what the competition looks like in that Race Saver division. Jack put the 305 in, and like we said, started at the back of a heat race and didn't transfer. Had to come out of the B main event and had to work hard to get that to start in the last row of our A feature. But A features, the big modified race up at Farley got rained out. Their final night got rained out early Saturday afternoon, and a couple guys from our area that were up there, they beat feet back to Eagle Raceway for the Saturday night action. Lance Borgman out of Beatrice, Nebraska, car number 76. It kind of in the same fashion of last week, stole the win. Guy looking for his first feature win, Trevor Noonan. But Lance Borgman, with 2 laps to go, passed him, picked up the win in that sport mod division. Trevor Noonan hung on for the 2nd spot. Cole Wayman was 3rd. Lee Horkey, with another good run, was 4th, and Ari Scouten rounded out your top 5 finishers. In the hobby stock division, Casey Moyer out of Auburn, Nebraska, kind of in the same mode as Friday night. He had Roy Armstrong glued to that back bumper, and he never put a wheel wrong those last 7 or 8 laps, and picked up his first win in a long, long time. I think he has won in years past. He took quite a few years off from racing, got back into the sport, picked up a win last night. Roy Armstrong was second. Albert Keeney was third. Ryan Gillen and Ben Beecher rounding out your top 5 finishers.
You think Roy's getting tired of finishing second, Stan?
Well, you know something, Roy's at that deal where, he knows he's going to be in that top 2 or 3 almost every night. He's gotten a little more patient, and I think he's still got the fire to win, but he takes it pretty easy. If you ever, when you interview him, you get that feeling that he's just one of them good old boys, loves what he's doing. I think he's going to be out there for a long time to come.
Yeah, they're having fun. That's all that it comes down to.
Oh, exactly. And in the modified feature, that did not disappoint. We talked about Jordan Grabowski, and he outdueled Chad Anderson and Bob Zobek to pick up the win in that one. Dustin Anderson, who had to transfer out of the B main, comes home with a 4th place finish. Rick Gropp and Johnny the Jet Sadoff rounding out the top finishers in that modified A main event. Moving over to the Sport Compact division, we had a first-time winner, Stephen Oakes, car number 17, picked up the win, and he was a pretty happy guy. And, we talked about Stephen, and the name is Stephen, and we got the name right, and I think it brought him good luck, and we talked before the race, and I think it brought him good luck, and he outdueled a tough field, picked up the win in that one. That brought us up to that sprint car A main event, and wow, is all I can say. Very fast racetrack, great field of cars on hand, and at the drop of the green flag, Jimmy Grasso picked up the early lead. There was quite a battle for second and third between the youngster Neil Nicolite and Cody Ledger. Ledger got around Nicolite on a caution flag. They got into lap traffic, actually, and both took the measure of Grasso. Grasso got tangled up with a lap car, ended up in the wall a few laps later. On the restart, coming down for the green flag on the restart, Troy Gropp had a pretty violent wreck heading into turn number 1. Jumped the cushion, hit the big tire out there, and flipped the car and pretty much destroyed that car number 54. And it was during that particular red flag for that they found out that Neil Nicolite had a broken radius rod on car number 12. So he got pushed up into the work area. Unfortunately, that didn't get him done. That handed the lead to Cody Ledger. Ledger started gapping the field pretty much. There was a good race going on for second between Adam Gullion and Tyler Drucke. And once Tyler got Adam cleared, he probably had the fastest car on the racetrack in the A main by probably 2/10. And he ran down Cody, and it was shaping up to be really a barn burner there. With about 8 laps to go, they were trading slide jobs, and Cody got the lead back. It looked like he was starting to pull away from Tyler again. And unfortunately, we had the fuel pump come engaged from the cam spud on that car. So he rolled to the infield. Tyler hung on for the win. And boy, you look at this lineup behind him: Adam Gullion, Mike Boston, Jason Martin raced his way from 16th to 4th. Sean Pointer, for the 3rd consecutive week, puts the 20P on the front stretch for a podium finish. All in all, kind of a brisk night. I don't think it was even quite as cold last night as it was on Friday, but a brisk night, and had a great crowd. A lot of fans braved the elements because they were all jonesing for some racing action, and it was Mother's Day night. All the moms got in 50/50 year for Eagle Raceway. They got in for 55 cents, and had quite a few moms. They were all getting their pictures taken with the A feature winners after the races were over. All in all, a good night, and we got a couple big weeks coming up. I know you're going to miss one of them, but there's probably maybe 15,000 free admission tickets floating around out there. We've got driver appreciation coming up this week at I-80 Speedway, and then a couple of weeks down the line, it's going to be at Eagle Raceway, and they handed out the tickets to all the drivers. So there's probably some free admission tickets available. See your if you got friends that are racing, see those guys. They can hook you up with some comp tickets, and I know by then you'll be back in the house, and we'll be treated to lots more great racing action.
Absolutely.
Well, Dan wishes that Roger would have made that decision on yesterday's race at about 10 o'clock in the morning. Between 10 and 2, I think Dan ended up with carpal tunnel texting people back, asking about the races.
Well, my phone was blowing up, too. I had guys, Mark Jefferson got rained out. I had Dusty Ballinger's crew chief was trying to find out because they were thinking about driving down, and it's 2.5 hour drive from Sioux Falls, and they really didn't decide. They didn't know for sure that they were going to get that pit area in the infield in shape, until probably just a little bit after 2:00, and the time frame just they ran out of time to be able to make it down in time. And all in all, like I said, once again, 38 sprint cars and a total 166 cars in 5 classes. We were done before 10 o'clock. Just a great night racing.
Stan, always do appreciate it. We'll see you back in the booth. Are you working Friday night at I-80 for the driver appreciation night, or are you off?
Yep, no. I think I'm there because somebody can't make it. I thought you couldn't make it.
No, I think I'm there.
Oh, well.
I only made the schedule. You think I'd know, right?
I thought I was working again next week, but if I'm not, I'll probably be heading up to Rock Rapids, Iowa, and Cody will be racing the 360 car up there, and I'll probably go up and help those guys out.
Good deal. Appreciate your time. We'll see you in the booth, either at I-80 or Eagle.
Hey, you bet. I'll see you back at Eagle.
Thanks, buddy. Have a good one.
Thanks, Dan.
We're going to take a break. We'll come back at turn number 4 on the front stretch.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
The NHRA Mellow Yellow Drag Racing Series, the world's fastest motorsport, is returning to Topeka.
339 miles an hour.
NHRA's best top-fuel dragster and funny car drivers are ready to face off at the Menards NHRA Heartland Nationals, May 18th through 20th. Kids 12 and under are free in general admission, and every ticket's on Pit Pass. So bring the family, meet the drivers, and be part of the action. Get tickets early and save at NHRA.com or call 800-884-NHRA.
We all have that coworker that runs their mouth off at how great they are. They shot a 5 under par, 95 mile an hour fastball, bench press 375, brah. Wouldn't you love to shut them up by schooling them at Joe's Karting? Council Bluffs' premier indoor karting track, professionally designed so each corner is your opportunity to embarrass your coworker. Call Buddy for your next company outing at 712-256-5278. Joe's Karting, white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue next to AMC 17.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Heading into turn number 4, brought to you by Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch. Catch all the green flag action for Saturday night's All-Star Race for NASCAR on the big screens of Quaker Steak and Lube. By the way, I've been noticing the last couple of nights I've been down there for Bike Night and Classic Car Night, they have a subscription to MAV TV and Dirt on Dirt. So the big screen in the Brickyard is dirt. Well, excuse me, it's not dirt. It's a big screen that is playing dirt racing on it. So a lot of Lucas Oil late model stuff, World of Outlaw sprint car stuff. There's all great stuff down at Quaker Steak and Lube. And I think I can say stuff one more time. Get on down to Quaker Steak and Lube. By the way, if you want to pick a menu item, you know you can count on me. Jacked Up BLT. We were talking to Chris and his wife Michelle about it when we were down at Kansas. It's my new addiction. They call it market cut bacon, but it is basically as thick as a slice of ham, and it's bacon. And that's all I need to say. Well, right there. It's end of sentence. Go to Quaker Steak and Lube and get the Jacked Up BLT.
When is more bacon a bad thing?
Hey, I want to say a big congratulations to McKenna Haase, first female sprint car winner in the 360 class. 2 years ago, she set the record to be the first female to win in a sprint car at Knoxville. Now she is the first female to win in the 360 class. So she owns 2 titles as the first female ever at Knoxville Raceway. Big congratulations to her. We were planning on getting her on the show in the next couple of weeks. I think we're going to have to move that timeline up.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on her schedule, but she's probably pretty close to done with school for the year if she's not done yet.
Yeah.
And so she ought to be able to make some time for us between her karate kicking and all the stuff she's got going on.
Stan alluded to it. Driver Appreciation Night at I-80 Speedway coming up this Friday night. If you want to get tickets, find your favorite driver on Facebook and message them. They've got plenty, and if they need more, they'll just head down to I-80 Speedway's ticket office and talk to Lee Ackerman and get more with that. Then Saturday night, it's on Armed Forces Night at Eagle Raceway, presented by Lincoln Salt Dogs and the Eagle 92.9. If you show up in your military uniform or have a current ID, you'll get into the grandstands for absolutely free. That'll be this Saturday night at Eagle Raceway. And then on Sunday, it is the Go 50 at I-80 Speedway. Lucas Oil late model guys return for their first preview of the I-80 Speedway in 2018. $10,000 on the line. They'll also have modifieds at the track to fill in the rest of the field, but it's going to be all Lucas Oil late models. We're going to have Bobby Pierce on the show next weekend to preview that race.
Should be a good field of Lucas cars because they'll be out here doing a little test and tune for the Silver Dollar Nationals coming up later. It's
Absolutely.
a big deal for them.
And it's going to be, Lucas Oil guys said, hey, listen, we love your track. We want to come twice a year. So Joe and Steve added this second race early on. They've had some trouble with weather getting it in, but this year it's on Sunday, May 20th. Make sure you get your tickets in advance, i80speedway.com.
How much fun did our contest winners have at Kansas Speedway this weekend?
I feel so bad. We had so much show, we didn't even get a chance to really talk about it, but Karen was just grinning face to cheek to cheek, and the fact that Kevin Harvick won last night, who was her favorite driver, she just kept saying the whole weekend, I can't believe how much goes into this. This was so fun to watch from the inside. And what was it, Derek Cope or no, it was Mike Mittler said, when you watch from the inside out, you'll never see it again.
Yeah, you'll never see it the same way again. And then we got a real nice big pat on the back when we were sitting down and having a bite to eat with Edward Williams.
Yeah, for Iowa Speedway, we're going to get that contest ready to go in the next couple of weeks. I think we have the October Kansas race ready to go, so we'll be all set there. But we're really excited about the next couple of months on the front stretch. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thanks to Archer Purdue for sponsoring the live show. Thanks to Stan Cisar for joining us. Make sure you get your tickets to the NHRA Heartland Nationals by going to NHRA.com/tickets. Thanks to Shawn Langdon for joining us, and of course Landon Cassill with StarCom Racing in turn number 1. If you missed any portion of today's show, we will broadcast it again on our YouTube channel tomorrow morning at about noon. We'll share that link on the Facebook page. For Craig, thank you, buds, for pushing the buttons. We'll do it again next weekend. Thanks to all the mothers for all you do, and have a great weekend. This has been The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.